It is me, not Kenneth. It's Mrs. Kenneth. Today I'm going to show you my pie crust recipe. If you guys remember way back when we were able to meet together in the church building, we had what was it? It was like a family night. I don't remember the name of the actual event, but we had, everyone brought dishes and we raised money for the youth, and it was super fun, and my pie was award winning. So I'm going to show you my pie crust recipe. I'm going to get started. I'm going to tilt you down. So here we go. Woo! So you can see what I'm doing. And let's begin. So I've already washed my hands. Most important part of cooking. One of my secrets is that I weigh all of my ingredients. As many of you remember, I worked in a local bakery for a hot minute last fall, and it was fun and I learned a lot. One of the things I picked up is to always measure your ingredients. So we're going to start with 298 grams of all-purpose flour. So I'm just going to measure that out. That comes to about 2.5 cups. Let me know that you're here. Drop a comment, everyone. 211. Let's do this. Greta, Lucille, get off the counter. Greta, get off the counter. My child is on the counter. So close. I guess I could go over. I could scoop it out. It's not liquid. The thing that I love about baking is it's an art, but it's also a science. So you can definitely, there's room for error. For those of you just joining, welcome to Cooking with Kenneth. I am obviously not Kenneth. I am his wife. Today I'm showing you my award-winning pie crust recipe. We're starting by measuring our flour. Too much. We want 298 grams of AP flour. I know that's hard to get. Well, it may be easier to get a hold of now. I'm not sure. Not been to the store in a hot minute. So there's our flour. I bumped the camera. I'm sorry, guys. Oh, I also forgot. You're going to need about a cup of ice water. This is the first thing I was going to show you. So what I always do is I fill up, I don't measure it. I just fill up a measuring cup. And then I put it in the freezer in the very back so it gets nice and crispy while I'm doing this pot. The next thing you want to do, you're going to need about a teaspoon of salt. I never measure it. We just give it a pinch. There, that's a teaspoon. And now comes the fun part. Oh, I forgot a butter knife. I thought I was prepared. I wasn't prepared. Okay. Now comes the fun part. You're going to need 1 cup of butter. Yes, I said it. 1 entire cup. Pie crusts and bakes are not meant to be healthy. They are meant to be tasty and bring smiles to your face. And what better to bring a smile to your face than an entire cup of butter? I use unsalted butter always in all my bakes. If you can only find salted butter, well, just don't put salt. From the previous step, don't put the 1 teaspoon of salt. Go on with your day. You want to cut it into little pats. I never worry about how big or small they are. I just like to cut them up to give me a starting point. So we're going to toss those into the butter mixture. Moving on to the next. I'm not as chatty as Kenneth. There's going to be a lot more silence. Let me know how y'all's week's going. I've lost count of what day it is. Quarantine. Anyone keeping up? Next part is my favorite part because we get our hands dirty. I like gardening. I like baking because we get our hands dirty. Take your flour and toss your butter in it. Toss your butter in your flour. And then I pick up in each individual pat and I just squish them. You want to make them as small as possible. You could do this in a blender or with a fork or even with a food processor. I like to do it by hand. When I say my bakes are handmade, they are truly handmade. Not all of them, obviously. I have a mixer, but I like to make a pie crust. We're just going to be working it in. For those of you just joining us, I'm obviously not Kenneth. I am Mrs. Kenneth. And we're making pie crust. No one's commented. Let me leave a comment so I know that you're here while I work in all of this butter. And again, butter doesn't have to be perfect. I always like in a pie when you get a little pocket of butter. Oh my gosh, you bite into it, it's divine. A lot of people don't like that. They like the evenness. You don't want a huge pocket because then once you bake it, it will burn underneath the pie. So just little, like, let me see. This guy is a good size. See that? This dude is not. It's not focusing, but you can see at least how big. So you're just going in and breaking up that butter. Obviously you don't want a huge pat of butter. Just break that up with your hand. And we're working our butter. I'm also going to show you my trick later, how to make the pie crust look so cute. Also by hand. We're just working in that butter. I'm not as talkative as my husband. I would make a strawberry pie, but that would take way too long. I feel like that's very summery though. Summer officially in our mind started last weekend, but in my mind starts this weekend because June 1st in my mind is the beginning of summer. Still just working that butter till it's nice and crumbly. Don't want it to be too small because then you don't get those lovely pockets of butter. Now I'm just squeezing, kind of letting the butter fall in little chunks. I don't know if you can see that. Alright, she's almost ready. I'm just going to go through, pick through these big parts that are still a little bit big. Break them up into smaller pieces. You want the dough, oh, I lost some butter. You want the dough to kind of be breadcrumb texture, but I like to have bigger pockets. So right now, I'm almost to that texture now. You can kind of see almost breadcrumb texture in the butter. There's still some bigger pockets that I need to break up, like that piece of butter and this piece of butter. But it's not just regular flour texture anymore. You can definitely tell that there's been another ingredient mixed in. We're just going through our butter. The butter that you want to use is cold. You can freeze this. This makes 2 single pie crusts, or if you're going to do a double pie crust with like a weave on top, this will be your entire pie crust. I freeze it. I will just wrap it in saran, well, not saran wrap. Kenneth and I don't have saran wrap. but in my silicone reusable saran wrap, and pop it in the freezer in the door, not in the back. And it keeps for a really long time. And all you do before you roll it out, oh yeah, that's the texture I want. You see that? What a beaut. All I do is I take it out for about probably 25-30 minutes, let it thaw, and then I roll it out. Okay, so this is ready for the ice water. You can see it's that breadcrumb texture. There's not really any piece of flour that has been untouched by the butter. So we're just gonna toss it a bit more, and I like to dig a little pocket. Now you're gonna use, I don't really have a precise measurement for this part. You're gonna use the amount of water that your dough wants to use, if that makes sense. So I'm gonna grab my water out of the freezer. Nice and chilly. I'm just gonna start by pouring a little bit of it in there. Not a ton, just a little bit. And then again, take it off my scale. You don't want to use more than 113 grams, then it starts getting soupy. But again, there's not really a precise, it's how much your dough, it's how thirsty your dough is. All right, so there was about 48 grams of water. Still got some pieces that don't want to come together. This is my least favorite part of making a pie crust because it all gets stuck to your hands. Move the scale out of the way. Get a bit more here. And again, if you get too much water, that's fine. Just add more flour. Baking is an art and a science. All right. Got a little bit more dough that doesn't want to be worked in, but it's starting to come together as one piece, and it's not sticking to the sides of the bowl. So to me, that means I've got enough water in it. We're going to move on and roll it out. I may have gotten a little bit too much water in it. We'll see when I roll it out. So I'm going to move my bowl aside. I'm not a crazy person like my husband, and I'm not just going to roll on the countertop because that means I have to clean my countertop later. Or clean my countertop more than I already need to clean it. I'm going to get one of my silicone baking mats or wax paper, or honestly whatever you have in your kitchen. If you want to use the countertop, that's fine. Just clean off the flour later. So I've got one of my silicone baking mats that I use in all my bakes, and I'm going to lightly flour it. Come on, buddy, flour. Well, that didn't work out the way I wanted. Get a bit more flour in here. There we go. Lightly flour my hands. Get all that pie dough off. And then you can measure this to get an exact half. I never do. I just cut it in half with a bench scraper or honestly a butter knife. Ta-da! Put that back in the bowl for now. All right, I'm gonna work my little dough boy into a little disc. Get him nice and covered in flour. And now's the fun part. Go grab my roller. Kenneth and I got a really nice roller for our wedding, and we have lost it in our move. So I literally use an old olive oil bottle with my rolling pin cover on the top for my roller. And you know what? It works. We're gonna roll it out into a little disc that's about the size of the pie, maybe a bit smaller. And And then I like to flip it over, flour it some more, roll it out some more. You want to make sure it get nice and even. You don't want any parts that are significantly chubbier or thicker than other parts. Get all of this spread out. And it doesn't have to be perfectly square. I like mine to be perfectly square because I don't like to waste dough. Because you will have to trim that off. And the final step, which is coming up next, and that is putting the crust in the pan. Okay, I think that's big enough. You can always measure. By breaking things and measuring it on your pie pan. So that is almost perfect. It's about as big around as my pie pan. So I'm gonna set this aside. Fold this in half. Now, here's where a bit of controversy comes in. I'm not gonna spray this dish because this is literally 1 cup of butter and flour. It's not gonna stick to the pan. If you were like my mother, you would spray the dish because you spray everything. Honestly, there is no right way. Okay, we're gonna get this nice and centered in our pie crust, pie pan. We're gonna very gently suggest that it go into the corners. Now, to soften your edges, let me get this out from underneath me. Put it up here. We are going. I like, because this dough, it's Play-Doh texture pretty much at this point. I like to make all of the crust around the edge even. And I just go and crimp it together. And you can actually move some pieces, like this part over here is a little bit low. So I'm gonna like squish over a lot of dough over here to kind of make it the same size. I wanted to have a nice lip so that we can do our pretty ribbons. Phooey. Again, doesn't have to be perfect. I like to be perfect though in my bakes. I like them to be pretty and tasty. Okay, you've got a nice lip all the way around. Go in and check the walls of your pie crust. Make sure they're nice and secure. Final step, you're gonna take your knuckle and your thumb and forefinger and you're gonna make pretty little ribbons. And there you have it, friends. Ashdon's award-winning pie crust. You can use this for sweet dishes, like a pie, or you can use it for a savory dish, like a quiche, which is what I'm going to do tomorrow morning. Hope you guys have enjoyed this video. Stay safe, wash your hands. We miss you all. Happy almost summer. Bye.